What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another video. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have done it. 12 weeks of the regular season is done, and now we move towards playoff time here in the British Columbia Football Conference. No Inside the BCFC coming at you guys this week. We are focusing all on the matchups. This week, we're going to be coming at you guys with some playoff previews for each of the two semi-final matchups in the BCFC. As you guys can see down below, and I'm sure by the title of today's video, we're going to start with the number 4 seed VI Raiders versus number 1 reigning defending Cullen Cup champions in the Okanagan Sun. Of course, before we get to that, folks, if you guys are enjoying all of our content from all season long, as well as this video right here, please be sure to leave a like on today's video. Comment down below letting us know how you guys are feeling about this matchup specifically, how you guys are feeling about playoff time here in the CJFL. Actually, I shouldn't say in the CJFL. I believe there's one more week left in the regular season for the other two conferences before they get into their playoff actions as well. But here in the BCFC, we're getting into win or go home time. And I am, as you guys can tell, super excited about this weekend's matchups. But like, comment, most importantly, subscribe on the channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every single time we go live or upload a video just like this one right here. So before we get into the playoff preview for today's video, a few reminders quickly for some content, all that sort of stuff. We should be fairly busy on the channel this week, so stay tuned. If you guys are not following us on our social media platforms, you guys can find us at Canadian Football Fanatics on Instagram, as well as at _CF Fanatics on Twitter. Our Instagram specifically will be quite busy with some graphics, some other playoff-like related posts, as well as we're going to release our very own CFF All-Stars. Our CFF times BCFC All-Stars is what I should say. Just to clarify, won't be doing a CDFL one, only going to be sticking in our neck of the woods here in the BCFC. But other than that, I know we are talking about the VI Raiders and Okanagan Sun on this matchup here today, or in this video here today. But a quick update for BCFC fans or CFF fans, whatever you guys want to call it. I'm going to be making the trip down to Langford next week to take in the, excuse me, folks, if you guys are hearing my my ringtone there in the background, my apologies. Usually do a good job of keeping the ringer off when I'm recording. But back to it, I will be heading down to Langford, down in Victoria next weekend to take in West Shore and Prince George live from Langford at Starlight Stadium, the number 2 versus the number 3 seed in the semifinals here in the BCFC. So let us know how you guys are feeling about that. Should be able to do a ton of content from down there as well. Looking forward to taking that matchup in person. Just don't think it's going to work out getting out to Kelowna for this one here. Although I would love to. I don't know if it makes the most sense for how the rest of the playoffs might shake up. So Okanagan Sun, Vancouver Island Raiders is what we're talking about here on today's video. 10-0 Okanagan Sun, grabbing hold of that number 1 seed once again, back-to-back undefeated seasons, taking on the Vancouver Island Raiders, who are returning to playoff for the first time since 2021, securing themselves in the playoffs with that number 4 seed, going on the road. And have to throw this one in there. I heard the stat actually chatting with president of the BCFC here earlier this morning. The last time a number 4 seed has taken down a number 1 seed in the BCFC, 1982. So do we have the makings of a historic upset, or does Okanagan continue to take care of business as they have done the last 2 seasons, but as the last, for the number 1 seeds, what's that, 40, 50 years going on darn near since the last time a number 4 seed has upset a number 1 seed. So in today's video, we're not only going to preview the matchup between the Vancouver Island Raiders and Okanagan Sun, we're actually going to be lucky enough to be joined by each of the head coaches from both programs. So shortly, we're going to be joined by head coach Shawn Arabsky of the Vancouver Island Raiders, and momentarily, we're going to be joined by former BCFC Coach of the Year and current head coach of the Okanagan Sun, Travis Miller, is going to join us to talk about his Okanagan Sun and the matchup we have coming up next Saturday. So the matchups kick off Saturday, October 11th. This one right here will kick off from the Apple Bowl at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and the one between the Prince George Kodiaks and West Shore Rebels will kick off 3 o'clock down in Starlight Stadium. So I don't want to waste too much time here, folks. I want to get as much time in with the both head coaches as we can. And just a reminder to we will also be sitting down with Coach Brian from the West Shore Rebels and Coach Borum of the Prince George Kodiaks to upload a video just like this one, playoff preview for each of the matchups. And then you guys, of course, will see a Cullen Cup playoff preview video the following week. So the content isn't stopping here, folks. Of course, we got this coming to you guys. Our very own CFF times BCFC All-Stars will be at the game down in Langford next week. We'll be up at the Cullen Cup. So let us know. Get at us on social media. Get at us in the comments what you guys would like to see more specifically here on the channel, or even in the off-season as we get towards the off-season time as well, because we have some stuff in the works behind the scenes. So as I mentioned, though, folks, please be sure to leave a like on today's video, comment down below as well, and most importantly, hit the subscribe button. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every single time we go live or upload a video like this one right here. So without further ado, let's send it over right now to Okanagan Sun head coach Travis Miller. Alrighty, everybody. Joining me now is current Okanagan Sun head coach Travis Miller. Coach, thanks for joining us. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Coach. So as we were just chatting a little bit off camera there, can't complain. Beautiful Sunday, and we're talking about some playoff football coming up next week, Coach. But before we get into the playoff football, coming off the regular season, you guys just came off undefeated once again, back-to-back seasons of 10-0. Kind of have set the new standard here in the BCFC of the model franchise, if you will. Maybe just kind of describe the emotions coming off this season for your club.
Yeah, I think it's a product of the process that we put in place over the last number of years, and to go undefeated 3 times in the last 4 years is definitely a great feeling for the organization. But it's one of those things that starts at the top. We have an incredible board of directors, incredible coaching staff, and then some really really bought in players. And I think one of the things that you and I talked about at the beginning of the season was we're not the right program for all players, but the players that buy in and the players that work well within our program, really carry this what we call our direction. So, for us, it's about more than just going undefeated. It's about the standard that we set and continuing to do that year in and year out.
I know how much weight your voice carries in that locker room, and even other leaders that you look upon in your coaching staff, guys like Coach Beatty, Coach McCarty, obviously as well. I'm curious, Coach, the kind of message to your group over the last maybe month of the season, as you guys basically locked up the #1 seed pretty early on. I believe after that game versus West Shore in early September, I want to say maybe the 13th or something like that. And in the last few weeks, obviously you guys have been playing everybody, but not really much to play for. You guys have essentially locked up, as I mentioned, home field advantage. So trying to stay as crisp as possible and trying to stay in the best, you play your best football. What's kind of been the message to your group the last few weeks of kind of trying to keep them engaged and stuff like that, and trying to keep them on, the bigger picture, which is obviously the Cullen Cup, and then obviously bringing home a Canadian Bowl as well.
Yeah, so I think that goes back to the beginning of the season when we set our goals for the year. Our #1 goal was to establish first place in the BCFC, so that all the playoffs had to go through the Apple Bowl. And once we were able to accomplish that, then our next goal was going 1-0 every week after that. And that it really takes the pressure off of trying to go undefeated throughout the course of the season, and it really just puts the emphasis on the process and the standard that we as the Okanagan Sun set for ourselves. And once we're able to really refine our process and how we go in and week out regardless of the opponent, then the wins just kind of followed suit. So it wasn't so much of trying to keep the kids engaged, because that's not something that necessarily we have to do or have the ability to do as coaches, but it's about making sure that the process and that standard never changes regardless of who the opponent is. And so our guys have done a great job in maintaining that and elevating it year in and year out. And I can't say enough good things about the chemical makeup of our program, from special teams, offense, defense, coaches, board of directors, and just everybody who's involved in our program knows that we have a very special group, and we're really going to push them as hard as we can to make sure that they get the most out of the season.
Yeah, so I want to talk about your offense here first, Coach, before we get into your defense. And you're lucky enough to kind of be, pulling the strings, if you will, a little bit on your offense, and you get to dial up what you will. Obviously, with a little bit of influence and kind of getting McCarty into the program this year as well. I'm sure that's been a benefit for you guys as well. But how fun is it for you, Ben, to obviously be, kind of you have control of the play calling on offense and to kind of on any given play, whether it's, Jarrett coming out of the backfield, you have such a big and strong offensive line in front of your group as well. And you have a trigger man like Liam Kroger, who's, I feel like, took another step or two this season and with a, very impressive touchdown interception ratio. I believe, I forget without seeing the stats from this yesterday's game, I think coming in was 20 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Does a great job of taking care of the football. You look at your receiving core with guys like Ben McKenday coming on. Falconer obviously has been a dynamic weapon for you guys all year. How fun is it for you to kind of, dial up on any given play, to have the trust in any given year guys to kind of step up to the call?
Yeah, I think, going back to your first question, it's a pretty unique position to be in, to be a coordinator and be the head coach of the program. And it's something that, I tried to step away from last season, but I wasn't able to be as effective as a head coach as I, had hoped I would be when I wasn't calling plays. And so, getting the chance to come back this year and having taken a year off of calling plays, it's been a rejuvenation of sorts, and having collaboration with guys like, Jordan McCarty and Nat Nagy, who's our president. But having Shane Beatty there as well too, to tell me when things are dumb or things are good, right? So, having that group of people and the brain trust is such a big and important part of why our program is so successful. When it comes to the players and the guys that we have, I mean, the biggest thing for us is just having consistency week in and week out. And one of the things that we've gotten better at as the season has gone on is our passing game. I mean, it's elevated week in and week out, and continue to carry the play. And it allows guys like Jaron and our offensive line to dominate at times, because, teams are really preparing for the pass, and then we're able to run the ball. And it's one of those things where I think it's complementary football. We talk about it, every week, being able to throw and run and do the things that we want to do as an offense, and take advantage of whatever the defense gives us. Week in and week out, we see different defenses, different coverages, different fronts, different blitzes, and we have to have answers for those. And that's been it's been really cool to have different weapons across the board, and be able to utilize those guys when we see different things. So, again, going back, being the head coach and offense coordinator has been it's been an incredible thing, and it's something that I definitely cherish and enjoy.
I'm curious, Coach, and talking about, I mentioned, Liam Kruger, who I feel like has taken another step or two. What has that relationship like been for you? Because obviously, with the not only the head coach to quarterback relationship, but obviously the offense coordinator to quarterback relationship, that's kind of, he's essentially an extension of yourself on the field, right? As kind of the coach on the field, to kind of run your offense the way that you see it, or both of you guys see it, I should say. As I mentioned about the touchdown interception ratio, I believe, without looking at the stats from yesterday's game, 2,400 passing yards, 68 completion percentage. Arguably going to be the BCFC's all-star guy quarterback this season. As I mentioned, just talk about a little bit of that relationship and how much trust you have in him as well to kind of fill your game plans most weeks.
Yeah. So I have a unique relationship with Liam. I've coached him since he was 14 years old. So, I get a lot of myself in him at times, because we're both hard-headed and very, sometimes quick-tempered in terms of individuals. And Cole, obviously, I'm a pretty vocal guy, and so is Liam. So you can imagine getting two of us in a room that have differing opinions at times is challenging. And for me, it's been an unbelievable relationship, because I've seen him grow into the person that he is today, and the maturity that he's shown over the last 10 years that I've known him has been nothing short of incredible to see the young man grow up in front of my eyes, and it's been very fortunate. So I'm proud of the person that he's become. But as a player, I mean, he threw 6 touchdowns yesterday and 460 yards passing, and it was a situation where we wanted to really push the limits on the passing side of things for a couple of reasons. Number one, going into the playoffs, we know that we have a really good run game. We know that we have one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best running back in the country, an incredible offensive line, and we really wanted to stress our passing game, and make sure that we had a lot of different scenarios in the bank, so that when we did get into playoffs, we had some sort of background in those different things. So we really put an emphasis on that, and Liam came out and played extremely well. He's got 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a little over 2,800 yards. which makes him the all-time leader in Okanagan Sun history. So in the 44 years that our program has been around, he's the has the number one quarterback performance. And I think for a guy who's been around our program for 5 years, it's fitting that in the last regular season game, he's able to break some of those records and solidify himself as the best quarterback to ever play for the team. And again, something I'm super proud of him for, but it's a definite result of the hard work of all of our players on offense, whether it's the offensive line, the receivers, our running backs blocking, our run game, setting up the pass game, and all the different aspects from our coaching staff as well too. So, it's a sum of all the parts, and something that, as a program, we get to look back on and say, we had one of the top offenses in Canada. I think we have, at this point, the third most yards in CJFL history. We scored 500 and some points, which puts us in the top 5 ever in CJFL history, and then the number one quarterback in our team's history, all in the same year. So something we're proud of, something we're very fortunate to have all coming together, and now we can look towards the playoffs.
Yeah, Coach, I'm talking about your offense. You just mentioned there the 523 points scored this season, good enough for 52.3 points per game this season. An incredible run by your offense in just dominant fashion. Speaking about dominant, Coach, I know coming into the season it was well talked about your defense and how dominant they were going to be. And obviously we get the news before the season even kicks off that Jacob Bond would get an opportunity with the Lions this season, and without kind of knowing whether or not he was going to come back or not. It was kind of that question mark going throughout the season. Obviously, he impressed enough to stick around the season, so you haven't even had your best player on paper by a lot of people's minds, and they've been incredibly dominant all season long. I talked about the 52 points per game put up by your offense. Your defense only giving up 9.1 points per game this season is an incredible mark. Just in your mind, Coach, because as I mentioned, it was talked about quite a bit, but in your mind, being able to see them every day, obviously with Coach Beatty's influence as well. But in your mind, Coach, why has this group been so dominant once again this season?
I definitely think it starts with the defensive line. I don't think that the rest of the defense is able to do the things that they're able to do without the 4 to 6 guys in front of them. Our 2 defensive ends with Jaquinta Summers and Jarvion Williams, along with Mitch Hickingbottom and Hunter Baltzma, have really, throughout the course of the year, just dominated. And then you rotate guys like Santiago Ramirez, Ben Pickering, and Paul Mario Ninamani, who's come back to our program late in the season. You can't ask for 7 guys who are, able to play at the level that they are and continue to dominate offensive lines, week in and week out. That puts a lot of pressure on those offenses, whether it's the quarterbacks or the run game, and it allows the linebackers to clean things up and the DBs to play aggressively, which obviously in the grand scheme of things allows them to play a little bit more freely, which is such an important part. And then you factor in the fact that we have Shane Beatty, who's in his second year, and that system isn't new to these guys. It's something that they're getting comfortable with. So it definitely plays a big role in that continuity factor. And what we were able to accomplish throughout the regular season is definitely something that is unique. I mean, 9.1 points a game is pretty crazy when you think about the numbers of defenses and the number of teams that we played. We had that game against West Shore where they put up 39 points against us, and it was a shootout. But again, our defense late in that game shut them down, and we were able to score offensively a couple of times to obviously come back to win. So when you look at the sum of all those parts, it's definitely something that we're proud of, both offensively, defensively, and on special teams.
Yeah, Coach, 9.1 points per game given up is an absolutely ridiculous mark. You mentioned their defensive line, how much depth you guys have. When talking about Summers and Williams, we'll talk about them in a second here. But I would imagine, guys like Boltzma, Santiago Ramirez are starters on the other 6 clubs. You could argue they're starters on the other whatever clubs that are around the CJFL as well. So starting caliber guys that are depth options for you guys. And obviously Boltzma is a guy that's put up numbers in the BCFC before. Already was very active early in the season as well. But when talking about Summers and Williams, Coach, we obviously sat down preseason and kind of you had mentioned these guys, and obviously they're just kind of names on pages for us, essentially, right? Not being able to see them up at camp or anything like that, and you guys were very highly of them. How much has that been, I guess, nice to see them pay off? And not only pay off, as you mentioned, it helps with the back end, but also I feel like your guys' back end with guys like Tariq Brown leading up amongst the league leaders in interceptions, Vicente Ferreira, all the other guys in your secondary that have kind of the combo of obviously your defense helps with the back end, but your back end at times can also help out your front end with the being able to lock down some of the opposing receivers as well.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's the continuity of all 3 aspects of the defensive side of the ball, whether it's the D line helping the linebackers, which help the DBs, or the DBs locking up receivers so that the D line can get after the quarterback or the run game. It's all reciprocal defense, and they all work so well together that you can't really have one without the other. And I think, in the offseason, we identified that we wanted to really improve that defensive line. And, fortunately for us, we had some players coming back to the team that were, all-star caliber, and guys like Phil Palmerin, and obviously getting Grayson back was such a big deal with Bond moving on. And so when you look at that aspect, and then you have guys like Tariq Brown coming back, or Liam O'Flynn joining us later, Ty Walker moving over to the defensive side of the ball, you can't say enough good things about the whole group. And then you talk about guys like Kojo Kadua, like that guy comes from Laurier, and just, locks people down throughout the course of the season. So again, I can't say enough good things about our defensive backs and what they're doing, but it's a result of the play of our linebackers and our D line, and vice versa.
All right, Coach, last few before we get you out of here, let you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, the last few off days that you do have here before playoffs start to take over the rest of your life here before the end of the Canadian Bowl. But, Coach, I want to shift things towards the matchup here coming up this next Saturday versus Vancouver Island Raiders. You guys obviously played way back in, I believe it was week number 2 up there in the Apple Bowl, got the better of the VI Raiders, 42-0 outcome. I'm curious. Obviously, you guys have been paying attention. We shared a text a few weeks ago when you guys were checking out the stream and stuff like that. What have you been able to see? Obviously, week 2 was 10 weeks ago, so I'm sure the Raiders have also stayed the same, but they've developed a little bit as well, or evolved, I should say. So what have you maybe seen from them, on tape and kind of preparing for them in their matchup this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, they beat the West Shore Rebels, and they, I think, from my side of things, anytime you can beat that program, it definitely puts you up there with the top teams in our conference, whether it's beating us or beating them, and that really, puts you into that elite status. I think they're well coached. They have a really good group of young coaches who have done a phenomenal job, really elevating the level of play of that group as of late. And you look at the late push that they've had. I think that PG game was maybe a little bit of an outlier. I definitely think that as a program, they've turned the corner, and they're, becoming that VI Raiders team that I played against for, the 5 years that I was in Kelowna. So, it's not something that's lost on me, and it's not something that as a program we're taking for granted. The records don't really reflect, I think, the play on the field. And for us, we're taking it as seriously as if we were playing West Shore or any other program in the first round. And I definitely think on film they have some really good weapons on offense, and defensively, Shawn's got them flying around, and they're very comfortable in the defense that they play. And they have different fronts and different blitzes and exotic packages that they have. So we got a lot to prepare for, and realistically, it's a great first step for us as a program, but it's also a great matchup, I think, for the BCFC.
Yeah, Coach, my last one for you here, just to kind of talk to your home fans now. Obviously, Coach, I'm a little bit biased growing up here in Nanaimo. I would say my favorite all-time BCFC home venue would be at Caledonia. Nice warm Saturday. Nothing like it, but my second one has to be up there in the Apple Bowl. There's nothing like it, especially on a packed Saturday. Not only when the grandstands are going, but you guys got the track surrounded with people as well, the sidelines on the other side, the beer garden going. Just kind of let the people know if they're in Kelowna, if they're not doing anything on Saturday, they don't even have to be football fans. Why they should be coming out, checking out the action on Saturday. 1:00 kickoff from the Apple Bowl, and it should be a good one up there from Kelowna.
Well, first of all, I completely disagree with you. I played a lot of games at Caledonia Park, and I've tried to have showers in those change rooms, and they haven't worked. And I've had moss fall on me, and I played some of the hardest games of my life in that park. So I can tell you wholeheartedly, I would much prefer to play at NDSS Field or anywhere else. But that said, if you're in Kelowna and you have the opportunity to come down, I think you're going to see two really competitive teams that are really motivated to move on to the next round. And I think, whether you're a football fan or not, getting the opportunity to see amateur football at this level and, at a 1 p.m. kickoff is something that's pretty unique and fun. I mean, there's not going to be too many atmospheres in probably all of the CJFL where you're going to have two teams that have the storied history that we do between our two programs facing off. On top of a 1 p.m. kickoff in Kelowna. So I think it's going to be an exciting time. There's going to be live bands. There's going to be tailgating. There's going to be beer gardens. There's going to probably be 2,000+ people at the game. So you're going to have a great atmosphere. It's going to be a lot of fun and something that we're excited to have.
Awesome, Coach. Great answer, Coach. I have to throw this one in there as well, but I think that's part of the lore of playing at Caledonia is that everybody else hates it. Even I would
For
say
sure.
at times we do as well. But Coach, appreciate your time once again, and good luck this weekend, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, thanks, Cole.
Yeah. Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. Big shout out to Coach Miller up in Okanagan for joining us from the one half of this matchup. For the other half of the matchup, let's head to Nanaimo and be joined by head coach of the Vancouver Island Raiders, Shawn Arabsky. Coach, thanks for joining us. How are we doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. Looking forward to chatting with you a little bit more about this matchup. Obviously, we have quite a bit of ties, me being here in Nanaimo as well, and being around the team quite often. But curious to chat about your feelings of kind of the matchup. Before we do get into the matchup itself, I'm curious. I asked you this a little bit yesterday as well, but I feel like if you could maybe take a little bit more time to kind of elaborate on it a little bit more and kind of maybe see like where this team has came from. Obviously 0-10 a few years ago, the whole you taking over in an interim basis after the West Shore loss. What does, kind of yesterday mean, and kind of putting a bow on the regular season of, getting to celebrate a nice regular season finale at home, and you guys are moving on to the playoffs. So I feel like it's a good celebration to be had, should be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can just see the evolution of everything. Like just from back in 23, like thinking about recruiting then and like the guys that we were trying to talk to, and like the energy around this team compared to even this time last year where we had like one maybe commit. We didn't have our first commit till like December last year to like right now, like phone blowing up with recruits wanting to come play out here and, already having a handful of commits. And basically now we're at the point of like, well, now we need to almost turn good players away because of how many it's more about going into the offseason is like, how can we now create structures to have an 80 to 90 man roster compared to the 65 to 75 that we've had in the past to try to get these kids in here. And, I just feel like the group of kids that we've got this year is extremely is the exact group of kids that we want to build this team around and go forward with. And you just see with how they supported, everyone yesterday when everyone got in the game. And, I had to tone things down, even just how excited everyone, which, I would way rather be, I'd way rather have to be the guy to rein guys in than to get everyone excited about playing football. So, the whole program's really excited with where we're at right now.
Yeah, for sure. I know speaking with you off camera as well, you guys are happy, but you're nowhere near satisfied, and kind of feel like this is almost only the beginning of kind of the turnaround of the Vancouver Island Raiders. And obviously the first step is getting back into the playoffs, first time since 2021, and obviously first time in your tenure here as head coach. So I'm curious lastly on kind of the regular season and yesterday, what it means for, the fifth years to be able to celebrate at home like that, when they were a part of some of the dark days a few years ago. They were able to be around involved around the turnaround, especially some of those key guys with Felice and Kaya, Marcus, and obviously bringing in some guys like Ruben, Quantarius this year. I've just been able to send them off the right way in a nice decisive win at home.
Yeah, I think everyone just played really well together. And, honestly, the message before the game was, nothing's given this game, just because you're a fifth year or just because you're a rookie and haven't played yet. Like, you're not just given playing time, it's earned. And when you do get out there, you earn more playing time. So, it's just kind of the culture we're trying to create around it is earning everything that you get. And, I've known those guys for the past 3 years, and we were in the trenches together a couple of years ago, and we're trying to everyone working together to get it out, players all the way to the top. So it was really special to to be on the field there with the fifth years in their last home regular season game. And I think they've done a really, really great, just to keep this program even alive and to push us over to the playoffs this year.
So let's get into the matchup itself. And I obviously started with Coach Miller with his offense. So I figured we start with strength on strength and start with your defense first. And obviously, I feel like we've talked about this in the past and kind of the reputation you'd like your defense to have. And being on the broadcast this year, calling all the home games, I kind of, said your MO or kind of what you death taxes and kind of Shawn sending a lot of pressure. How fun has it been to kind of like scheme it up and kind of be like the guy that's behind the strings of kind of dialing it up when you do? And I know you do it in collaboration with all your defensive staff, but how much fun has that been? And obviously your second year as a play caller.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's fun when you have a success, of course, and you can see the vision throughout the week. And when it comes to the blitzing and the pressure, it's honestly like when I thought about being a coach or a defense or like that, like I just never really thought we'd be like that. And even yesterday, I thought it was funny because it was like we were sending zone pressures, and then it just got to a point where it was like, well, let's just default back to 6-man cover 0. And because that's just where a lot of our success has come, we've got the great DBs in the back end, and we've got a lot of speed up front. So, we like to do a lot of things, not just that, and we have a lot of things in the bag, but, it's definitely had a lot of success, even, I haven't gone through the stats yet, but, I think we were 1 behind the Sun going into week 10 in sacks this year. So, the guys have really bought into it as well. And, especially against Valley last week, just the guys were really excited, with all the sacks, and, we believe we can cover guys one-on-one. So, and it starts in the back end with the DBs being able to trust them in those cover 1 matchups. And then, the guys up front with the speed we have. So it's definitely been a really fun year in the back end.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about that trust from, being able to send that pressure obviously involves the trust in the secondary from all those guys. Obviously kind of maybe some unsung heroes, you could almost say, which is crazy to think about when obviously kind of maybe you talk about that front with guys like Tanai Wisdom, who obviously up around the sack lead this year. Quantarius, as I mentioned, defensive line, your secondary who has many names in there. But when you look at your linebacking core, that's, as I mentioned, kind of, it's crazy that it goes underrated in a sense, but guys like Shipham, Finstad, Sterling Henry this year, how exciting has it been to see their kind of evolvement, I guess, throughout their career, and then them coming back for, their 5th year the next year as well?
Yeah, I think the linebacking core has been the rock of this year for sure. Like, we can just always depend on them being in the right spots. They communicate so well. And those 3 have played, basically every game other than when we were battling a couple injuries there in the middle of the year. So, I think we can just kind of depend on them to know the checks and the adjustments. And yeah, to get all 3 of those guys back next year too is going to be massive, just because I think all 3 of them, I think even with the all-stars, like, I think we're going to get 1 linebacker all-star this year, and it's really like none of them are the guy. I don't really feel like it's just whatever, I think all the coaches around the league is going to be kind of pick your flavor. Do you like the blitzing from Sterling? Do you like Colton's run fitting, or, kind of Max is kind of the do it all emotional leader on the back in the defensive room as well. So, yeah, so I really think they've kind of carried us this year.
So talking about your defense specifically in the matchup this upcoming Saturday, with kind of, we talked about, right, the trust in your back end to maybe be in some man-to-man situations with guys like Falconer and Femakinde and stuff like that, when obviously your front 7 will probably be trying to occupied with Jaren and the run game with the Okanagan Sun. What challenges do kind of they present on film? Obviously, you guys seen each other way back in week 2 and 10 weeks ago. Both teams, I'm sure, have changed and have are going to present different looks for sure from previously.
Yeah, I definitely think they have the most fun offense in the league in terms of what they can do. To me, it looks like they're going for the jugular at any point. They probably lead the league in explosive play. So it's definitely going to be, how do you stop the run while limiting the explosives? Because, if you push too much into making sure you're not getting beat over the top, then, Jaren's just going to run it 25, 30 times for 150, 200 yards. And that's something they haven't really done that I thought they did with Noah last year, where they kind of ran him, all day, all game. And, I think they've done a really good job even conserving Jaren a bit. So it definitely wouldn't surprise me for them to come out and try to run the ball 35 times, but also wouldn't surprise me if you look at their stats from the last game, if they throw it 50, 60 times as well. So, you don't really know exactly what they're going to do, what their game plan is going to be, but, you need to stop the explosive and you need to stop the run at the same time.
Yeah, so let's get over to your offense, and obviously first and foremost, let's talk about the quarterbacks. We've had a conversation, plenty about both of them, but I feel like the biggest positive is your guys' belief in both of them and being able to trust either of them if they're in the game. I'm curious if you don't mind maybe just talking about your belief in both Braden Jupe and Zach Golab, whoever is under center for you this upcoming weekend, as well as maybe the kind of the plan at practice, if there's any kind of solidified starter, if there's going to be maybe some obviously we saw both quarterbacks kind of going 2 series on, 2 series off yesterday in the win versus Langley. So just talk about the belief and kind of the plan maybe for the quarterbacks upcoming.
Yeah, I mean, I think both can do different things. Jupe stands in the pocket and kind of deliver all over the place. Zach's a little bit more agile, can get out of the pocket. But, I think with whoever we go with, I think the offense believes in. And I think both of them have played well the last 3 weeks. When we look at Jupe against West Shore, we only put up 10 points, but he controlled the ball really well. We had like 400 yards of offense. And then, Valley, Zach comes in and he makes the great plays. And, both of them played well against Langley. So, definitely still looking at the film and having conversation with the staff how we want to do it this week. But, if it comes down to it, both might play next Saturday. It's going to be basically riding the hot hand, and whoever's going to give us the best chance to win, and whoever's going to take care of the football while still being able to push the ball downfield. But I think the offense believes in both. I think our ability to run the ball behind our O-line and Coach Bowles and the 3 running backs we have is really going to set the tone for how that game goes. Because when you hit playoffs, you have to be able to run the ball. But again, Okanagan's allowing 65 rushing yards a game right now, so. They have the best run defense in Canada, so it's going to be tough. But I think we have the guys that can do it, as well as some of the scheme stuff. But even just the support that Jupe and Golab have with Ruben and Parker and Blaze and some of the young guys we have in the room as well is massive to kind of the offensive success.
When talking about your offense a bit more, anybody that knows me obviously is well aware of how big of a Bills fan I am. Obviously, they adopt the kind of the everybody eats motto on offense, and I feel like your offense in a way is kind of everybody eats. Obviously, you talked about the 3 backs in Lyle and Parker Wills, Deshaun Jacobs being the late addition to your squad. And you look in the receiving corps, it's kind of everybody's eating as well. And Parker, Ruben, Blaze kind of up there in the top 10 in most receiving categories. You've had Jacob Celso kind of come onto the scene, who had maybe front runner of rookie of the year in the BCFC this season. And then you also have, probably 7-8 guys in that receiving corps that you really trust. And, Jake Barker, the other guys that are in that receiving corps that can step up as well. How nice, obviously, and you're in kind of a little bit of unfamiliar water with obviously Jake being more on the offensive side, but how nice has that been as a defensive coordinator to kind of watch everybody eat offensively this year?
Yeah. I mean, I think, the receiver room's always tough. Like, everyone wants to put up 100 yards every week, but, we've definitely kind of trying to shift the vibe of blocking, making sure we're catching the ball, and trying to get 2 first downs every time the offense touches the ball. If we get 2 first downs and can flip the field, that's a win. So just kind of trying to shift the culture of the offense to needing points and needing yards to a little bit more of how do we play the game better, the game of football, the field position game and all that. But I think we have the big 3 of the older guys, and then Celso and Dorian as the rookies, and Jake Barker is super dependable and one of the highest IQs as well. So I think any given day one may do better than the other, and it's good, because when you look at Oki's defense, their back end's extremely strong as well. So we're going to need to win some one-on-one matchups. So it's really going to come down to our offensive staff's ability to scheme up guys open, as well as making the right decisions at the right times when to attack guys.
And of course, you had guys like Trey score touchdowns yesterday. I believe Cameron scored touchdowns, Harmon as well, other guys in that receiving corps. So just the depth options stepping up in the right time as well. When talking about your offense and kind of maybe looking at the opponent, the Okanagan Sun, I just chatted with Coach Miller and kind of mentioned that I believe 9.1 points per game given up this season by the Okanagan Sun defense. So it's not going to be any easy task for the offense this week. But I feel like kind of leaning on this run game. Well, and obviously you said how much their yards are giving up a game is the best in Canada right now. But I really feel like you guys have done a good job all season of really leaning on this run game. Ronde Lau's been a really good back to watch in the league, of kind of finishing in the top 5 in rushing yards this year. Deshaun Jacobs was really fun to watch yesterday against the Langley Rams, and then Parker Wills is a very underrated back in the conference. But I guess maybe kind of your thoughts of kind of the matchup going against that defense, as well as kind of leaning on the run game, and how efficient and proactive that's been for your offense to kind of benefit off things like play action and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to stay in plus territory against them, right? If you consistently in second and longs, like that D line is just going to be eating all day. So it's really about us, getting chunks. Again, like I said, 2 first downs every time that offense touches the field. Like, if we do that, play good defense, special teams balls out, we're going to give ourselves a chance to win. We're not going into this game thinking we're going to win a 50-45 ball game. We want to shorten the game and be able to run the ball, find creative ways to run the ball, and just be fearless out there with playing with house money. So I don't think anyone is going to expect us to go in there and beat them. But, everyone in our locker room feels confident that we can get the job done. So, if everyone in our locker room is fearless and believe, then, anything can happen on a Saturday. So, yeah, so, we're just really excited about the opportunity to play them. And, I feel like, again, like if you can scheme properly, and if you can win some one-on-one matchups and you just play the game right, I think you can win any game any day.
Yeah, so last few for you, Shawn, before we get you out of here. Appreciate your time once again. I'm curious, with Canadian football and all the talk of, it's a true three-phase game. Special teams hasn't really been brought up, I feel like, as much as it maybe should this season. I feel like you guys have had a nice breath of fresh air in the kicking room with Cole McQueen this year and kind of bringing a little bit of consistency. I know it's been a tough little bit, tough little last little month of the season for him, but bringing a lot of consistency as well as, the return game as well. Just Deshaun Jacobs, kind of one of those returners who's brought, a fearlessness to the return game, putting you guys into good field position, as well as Jacob Celso returning kicks as well. And Carrick Bryan, I feel like, has done a good job of kind of including some surprise, trick plays, whether it is. I know yesterday it didn't really pan out, but always kind of keeping the special teams unit of the other team off guard. And how much of a benefit has that been for your group this year?
Yeah, it's been massive. I think even just like the confidence guys have on special teams has been huge. They're well coached over there. So, I think especially in a game like this where, when you're the underdogs, it's like, we're going to have a deep bag of things that we're going to want to be able to do. And, I think Tarek is one of the most creative special teams minds in the CJFL. So, I'd said, even when things fail, I say, we brought him up here from West Shore. Other than all the stuff he does behind the scenes of his GM, it's like we brought him. The most things we're excited about is just, to let him cook as well as special teams coordinator. So, we're confident in him and we're confident in some of our returners to make a splash play and, put us in a really good position. Again, like we want to be in plus territory all day. So if we can do that, then, and special teams like punt return is basically that third part of the game. So, we're going to need to win that for sure.
All right, last one here for you, Shawn, and kind of the same one I ended with Coach Miller as well. Just the kind of reminder or teaser maybe for folks that are maybe in the Nanaimo area aren't going to be able to get up to Kelowna, why they should tune in to pay-per-view BCFC TV on Saturday. I mentioned to Coach Miller, I'm a little bit biased, but I would I don't know if I'd trade any day over kind of a nice Saturday afternoon at Caledonia, but the Apple Bowl is a close second. He obviously disagreed, but Apple Bowl is a great venue to play a playoff game in, especially in the fall when the leaves start falling. The natural grass field and the facility there is a great place to take in the game. But as I mentioned, if folks from the Nanaimo area can't get up there for the game, why should they tune in to BCFC TV for a competitive game on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, playoff football. We're hoping for a nice, beautiful fall day in the Apple Bowl. I love playing Kelowna. We won a playoff game there when we played, and it's really just like the belief that anything can happen. And I think it's going to be an exciting game no matter what, like competitive. I really think our talent and culture of this team is a lot even stronger than a 5-4-1 record. And we just want to prove that and just go into it and play a football game. At the end of the day, it's the same football game kids play when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And the Apple Bowl is beautiful, and we love the vibe there. And there'd be no better place for us to go win a playoff game than up there in Kelowna. So we're really excited about the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks again for your time, Coach, and good luck on Saturday, and we'll chat soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Cole.
Big shout out to Coach Arabsky and Coach Miller once again for hopping on the show here today. Our first playoff preview for the BCFC semifinal matchups. First of 2 semifinal matchups. If you guys are seeing this one and it's later in the week, you guys can go check out the second of our playoff previews. The Prince George Kodiaks taking on the West Shore Rebels in the 2-3 matchup. This, of course, the 1-4 matchup with the Vancouver Island Raiders, the number 4 seed, taking on the number 1 Okanagan Sun. Appreciate, as I mentioned, both coaches for taking a little bit of time on their off days. As I know, Coach Miller, a busy family man, Coach Shawn trying to enjoy a little bit of away from football time. Trying to take a little bit of breath of fresh air from trying to, it's if earlier in the year were the dog days, these are most definitely the dog days of the season when you get here. But come January, you're missing this time of year. So no better time of the year if you're a coach. Of course, if you're here on the Canadian Football Fanatics as well, following every step of the way. If you guys enjoyed today's playoff preview, of course, be sure to like today's video, comment down below. Most importantly, subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every time we go live or upload a video like this one. If it is after Wednesday in the week, go check out our other playoff preview, as it will be up a few days after this is uploaded. Other than that, folks, enjoy the week and can't wait for playoff football here in the BCFC. We'll see you guys on the next one.